For decades, corporate network security was built on a single assumption: anyone inside the network can be trusted. You'd build a hard perimeter, firewalls at the edge, intrusion detection systems, and everything inside that perimeter was considered safe. Then cloud computing arrived. Then remote work. Then attackers started stealing credentials and walking right through the front door. The model broke. Zero trust is what replaced it. And the premise is simple: never trust, always verify. Every user, every device, every request treated as potentially hostile. Even the ones coming from inside. John Kindervag coined the term zero trust in 2010 while working at Forrester Research. His argument was straightforward. The concept of a trusted internal network was a fiction that attackers had already disproven. When an attacker compromises a single endpoint inside the perimeter, they gain lateral movement capability through the entire trusted network. There's nothing blocking them internally. Kindervag's model proposed that trust should never be assumed. It should be continuously established based on identity, device health, and context. Every request to access a resource should be evaluated on its own merits, not on where it's coming from. The executive order signed by President Biden in May 2021 mandated that all U.S. federal agencies move towards zero trust architecture. The Colonial Pipeline and SolarWinds attacks had made clear that perimeter-based security was failing at scale. The order gave agencies specific timelines and technical requirements. That mandate cascaded into the private sector. Vendors who wanted federal contracts needed to demonstrate zero trust alignment. The concept went from niche security architecture to boardroom priority almost overnight. Gartner projects that by 2026, 10% of large enterprises will have a mature, measurable zero trust program in place. As of 2024, fewer than 1% do. Zero trust is not a product. This is the first thing vendors will obscure and analysts will clarify. You cannot buy a zero trust appliance and check the box. It's an architecture, a set of principles applied across identity, device, network, application, and data layers. The 5 pillars that CISA uses to define zero trust are identity, device, network and environment, application workload, and data. Each pillar requires continuous verification rather than one-time authentication. A user who authenticates in the morning is not automatically trusted at 2 p.m. if their device health has changed or their access request is anomalous. Identity is the cornerstone. In a zero-trust environment, multi-factor authentication is mandatory, not optional, not limited to privileged users. Every account, every time. Beyond MFA, identity posture is continuously evaluated through behavioral signals. If a user typically accesses Salesforce from Chicago on a Windows laptop and suddenly connects from a location in Eastern Europe on an unknown device, that context flags the session for additional verification or blocks it outright. This is called risk-based conditional access. The system computes a risk score for every authentication event and adjusts the required verification level accordingly. Microsegmentation is the network layer of zero trust. Traditional networks treat everything inside as one flat zone. Microsegmentation divides the network into small, isolated segments. A user in accounting can reach the accounting application and nothing else. A compromised machine in one segment cannot reach machines in other segments without generating an explicit access request that must be evaluated and approved. When an attacker gains initial access, microsegmentation limits their blast radius. They're contained to the segment they landed in. Lateral movement, the movement that transforms a single compromised endpoint into a full breach, becomes exponentially harder. Google's BeyondCorp initiative is the most documented real-world zero-trust implementation. Google began building it in 2011 after a sophisticated Chinese state attack, Operation Aurora, compromised their internal network. BeyondCorp eliminated the privileged internal network entirely. No VPN. Every access decision is based on device certificates, user identity, and context, not network location. An employee working from a coffee shop in Tokyo gets the same access as an employee sitting at Google headquarters. Both are evaluated the same way. Google published the architecture in detail, and it became the template that shaped every zero trust implementation that followed. The implementation reality for most organizations is a multi-year effort. You don't re-architect a network overnight. The typical zero trust journey starts with identity. Deploy MFA everywhere, implement conditional access policies, inventory privileged accounts. Then, device health. Enforce endpoint detection and device compliance before granting access. Then, application access. Replace VP on with application-specific access proxies. Then data. Classify sensitive data. Apply controls at the data layer. Each phase reduces risk incrementally. Organizations that try to implement everything simultaneously typically stall. The ones that execute in phases with measurable milestones actually finish. The business case is straightforward for anyone who's tracked the cost of major breaches. The average cost of a data breach in 2023 was $4.45 million, according to IBM. Organizations with mature zero trust deployments had breach costs averaging $1.5 million less than those without. The model pays for itself before you account for regulatory fines, reputational damage, and stock price impact. The implementation cost varies by organization size and complexity, but the ROI math is not ambiguous. The question most CISOs face is not whether to adopt zero trust, it's how to sequence the phases to maximize early risk reduction. The perimeter model assumed attackers were on the outside. They aren't. They haven't been for a long time. They're using stolen credentials, compromised contractors, and software supply chain access to get inside cleanly. Zero trust doesn't assume any of that away. It assumes the attacker is already in and builds every access decision around that reality. That's not paranoia. That's a threat model that matches the actual threat landscape of 2024. If you want to understand one of the most consequential examples of what happens when the trusted internal network model fails completely, our video on the SolarWinds supply chain attack shows exactly how far inside an attacker can get when every door is open. Zero trust assumes the attacker is already inside. To see the breach that proved why that assumption is necessary, how Russia was inside you. Government Networks for 9 months walks through the SolarWinds compromise. It is on this channel.